Good Will Hunting, first requested to me by Anthony Ford and directed by Gus Van Sant, is a 1997 drama film starring Matt Damon. Matt Damon plays Will, a genius with abilities that are off the charts. However, Will has some problems with his past that he's trying to work through. He's helped by a therapist played by Robin Williams who wants Will to address his inner issues, but this turns out to be more difficult than he anticipated. As everyone around Will hopes to aid him in reaching his potential, he must first address his inner demons. Alright, so I've really been looking forward to discussing Good Will Hunting because I actually watched it for the first time a few months ago, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I watched it again for this review, as I always do, and I feel the same about it now as I did the first time I watched it. There's so much about this movie that promotes introspection from the viewer, and I love that. Because while it does deal with a genius, so to speak, I think there is a lot here that is applicable to almost anyone who watches it. Because a lot of the film does address Will's inability to be honest with himself, his inability to address what his fears are and how they're prohibiting his progress. Will's inability to address his insecurities and his fears results in him never becoming more than what he currently is. He can evolve. I like this running theme a lot because it takes a lot for us as individuals to step outside of our own comfort zones, those comfort zones that we establish ourselves. This is something that I find I deal with all the time. And in many cases, I am resistant to stepping outside my comfort zone and dealing with that change. This is something I'm always trying to work on and trying to be cognizant of. There's a lot with Will that I find will be very relatable to a lot of people, despite the fact that he is an intellectual prodigy, like I mentioned. But there are deeper things going on with him that I think are really thoughtfully addressed in this film. That said, the performances are outstanding. I mean, I've seen many great Matt Damon performances, but I don't think I've seen any better than this one. He plays Will with such a arrogance, as a flawed genius that's as compelling as he is layered. There are points where you're rooting for him, and there's others where you're definitely not rooting for him because he's such a jackass, condescending know-it-all. And I like this a lot because I didn't feel like there's any hero to this story. This feels like real people dealing with real problems, all of them with different ideas on how to address those problems. This film really cuts to the core of what it means to be a human, a flawed human, and what it means to deal with real problems that we all encounter in some way, shape, or form. So how we deal with, other people's expectations of us, how we address trauma in our life and insecurity in ourselves, these are all things that are thoughtfully addressed in this film. And these topics are thoughtful in part because they're channeled through characters that feel authentic. Robin Williams is the other shining star in this film, and his performance is probably even more memorable for me than Matt Damon's, which is definitely saying something. I felt like Robin Williams really was stealing every scene he was in because of how wise his character came across. I felt like he was dropping some serious wisdom and knowledge in every scene that was not just helpful for Will Hunting, but also for the viewer. I almost felt as if I was getting free life lessons from a qualified therapist, a really good one. He was perfect for this role because he was very convincing and, like I said, in how wise he was and how kind-natured he was, which is really important for that character. Another aspect of the film that I really like a lot is the dialogue. I'm not a Bostonian and I don't claim to be an expert in how Bostonians live, but I do know what young men are like and the kinds of things they say to one another and the kind of things they do. Will spends a lot of time with his friends in this film, including Ben Affleck's character, and there's something so engaging about the way the characters interact with one another. It's just basically guys shooting the shit, but it gives us a lot of insight into Will's tough exterior and false sense of confidence. I also love the conversations between Will and Sean because it feels like a constant intellectual tug of war. You see Sean trying to get to the bottom of Will's fears, and you see, Will trying to ward him off and protect himself with everything he's got. There's a lot of really entertaining exchanges between these two, and it makes for some really great drama. What I also liked about this film was the relationship between Will and Skyler. Skyler is a Harvard student who's incredibly charismatic and is someone who is actually able to bring out a side of Will that otherwise goes unseen. With her, he's more friendly and easygoing, mostly because he wants to impress her and he's on his best behavior, but you still get to see some of his flaws take shape as he bends the truth every now and then. But their relationship allows the viewer to see a side of Will that for the most part is more likable. It also brings some light to the story because of how happy they are most of the time, and I think the chemistry between Matt Damon and Minnie Driver is really strong, and the relationship adds a lot of entertainment and, like I mentioned, development for Will as a character. Good Will Hunting also has several big scenes that will stick out as very memorable ones, primarily due to the acting. I feel like all great drama films have at least one of those scenes, the scene where the actor puts on an amazing display of, acting and earns the respect and praise they deserve. There's a scene in the park in the very early stages of the film where Sean explains to Will how immature and, lacking in confidence he is. There's another near the end of the film where Will actually opens up. Different scenes, but brilliant acting in both. Good Will Hunting is great in large part due to the performances, which are on full display in these great scenes. But overall, Good Will Hunting is excellent, and I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it already. As for the pros cons though, for the pros, Good Will Hunting delivers excellent performances, strong dialogue, thoughtful commentary on meaningful topics, and several big drama scenes. This movie holds up really well, and there's not a con I can mention for it. Good Will Hunting gets a 10 out of 10 from me, and I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. It's an excellent drama film. So did you guys see Good Will Hunting yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. Also, let me know your favorite film from the 90s. This should come as no surprise to you that know me pretty well by now, but for me, it's Terminator 2. I love everything about Terminator 2. I think it's perfect. But either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. I'll see you in the next video.